Now let's take just a little bit closer look at tables. And as we do this, let me just kind of point out to you that we're going to jump into a section of the course here where we're going to take a look at some of the various database objects, things like tables, data integrity and why we need this on our tables, the data types that we're using in our columns, primary keys on our tables, constraints, nulls, views. And if you have a good foundational understanding about all these various database objects, you'll be much, much more efficient at writing your queries and understanding how and why to write your queries the way you do. So first of all, let's talk about tables. Tables are where we store our data in our databases. Tables are what we're going to be executing our queries against to manipulate the data in those tables. Every table has a specific number of columns, and each column stores a certain type of data. Now, a table, while it has a very fixed number of columns, it can have an almost unlimited number of rows. And the only real limitation to the number of rows, it's not truly unlimited, but the only limitation is the space on our disk subsystem, the manageability of a table after a certain size, organization of that table after a certain size, and then just sheer efficiency. When your computer has to look through millions of rows of data, it takes it a lot longer time than if it only had to look through 100 or 200,000 rows of data. And so a lot of times we'll split those tables up. We'll do some things called partitioning and some other things. But for now, just understand that tables are where we store our data. Now let's jump out into the SQL Server Management Studio and let's take a look at a table. The first thing I want to do is just execute a very simple query, and we'll use that person.person table in this AdventureWorks database. And so what I'm going to do here is just type select, and I'll get all columns from person.person. So the asterisk there tells me to return all the columns from this table. I don't have anything to limit the number of rows. And so I will execute that. Now be careful with executing these types of queries in a production environment, because notice this query is still running after 7 seconds and it returned 19,972 rows that quickly. Your database administrator will come looking for you if you execute these kind of queries over and over in the production environment, because this table could have easily had 500,000-600,000 rows, and that's not good to just pull that information just to see how long it takes. But notice our table here. I'm going to unpin this and let it go away. And notice we have a column here, a column here, a column here, and you can see these various columns across here. But we have a very fixed set of columns. But so far we have now 19,000 rows. Now let me pull this over so you can see the number, because as I'm scrolling down, it's hard to comprehend how many rows are here. Notice there's one, and as I drag this down, we're increasing. And you'll also notice that this looks very similar to like an Excel spreadsheet, right? We have rows of data and we have columns of data, and there is a definite relationship between those. Now, a table, let me show you one other thing about these. I'm going to close this out and I won't save that. I'm going to go back to my Object Explorer and I'm going to scroll up. I'll pin this up so it's a little easier to see. And I'll go to the database diagrams and I'll do a new database diagram, and I want you to see a relationship here. If I go down to this person.person table and pull it in right here, I'll add it to my diagram and then I'll close that out and I'll make this go away so that we can see it very easily. Okay, and I'll change this to 125%. Well, let's make it 150% to make it easy. Now notice how it shows this table. If I look at it in diagram form, it's only showing me the column names and it's showing them vertically, right? And if I right click in my diagram and choose Table View and choose Standard, it also shows me the data types and whether or not it allows nulls. Now that's neat to know for later, but understand now when I look at a table in this form right here, this is simply the columns that are in that table, right? Then if I go out here and execute a query on this table, select asterisk from person.person and execute that, it is kind of flipping that. Here are my columns. Instead of being vertical, they're now horizontal, and all of my rows are vertical. So when you're reading these diagrams, just understand that you are actually reading the column names, and you can change them to see the column types. And when you execute the query, the column names are across the top, and you're seeing the data down this way. So That's fundamental. That's how the data is stored in the tables. And where we're going to go in the next few videos is talk about how the way this data is stored in these tables can cause us to move into other situations that can impact the way we write our queries. So let's go step by step.